Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode where we dive into topics that matter in today's fast-paced world. Today, we're talking about something almost everyone struggles with: focus. With so many distractions around us, how can we stay on track and actually get things done?
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode where we dive into topics that matter in today's fast-paced world. Today, we're talking about something almost everyone struggles with: focus. With so many distractions around us, how can we stay on track and actually get things done?
Absolutely. Let's start with one of the biggest culprits: our phones. It's almost like an extension of ourselves. But the constant pinging and buzzing pull us away from the task at hand. A simple tip: turn off unnecessary notifications or put your phone on Do Not Disturb when you're working.
That's a great one. Another trick I've found helpful is setting dedicated time blocks for tasks. It's like giving yourself permission to focus on one thing without feeling overwhelmed by everything else you need to do.
Yes, and speaking of time blocks, have you ever tried the Pomodoro technique? You focus for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and repeat. It's so effective because it gives your brain short rest periods to recharge.
I love that method. It's also important to create a workspace that minimizes distractions. Whether it's a quiet room, noise-cancelling headphones, or just a tidy desk, your environment plays a huge role in your ability to focus.
100%. And let's not forget about the mental side of things. Sometimes the biggest distraction is our own thoughts, stress, overthinking, or even boredom. Meditation or mindfulness exercises can help calm your mind and keep you grounded.
So true. And let's talk about multitasking for a second. People think it makes them more productive, but in reality, it splits your attention and reduces the quality of your work. Focus on one thing at a time. It's much more efficient.
Totally agree. Another tip is to set clear goals for the day. When you know what you're working toward, it's easier to avoid distractions and stay motivated. Plus, crossing things off your list feels amazing.
Absolutely, Tom. And sometimes, taking breaks to recharge is just as important as working hard. Overloading yourself can lead to burnout, which makes it even harder to stay focused in the long run.
Great point, Maya. It's about balance, knowing when to push and when to pause. And with the right tools and mindset, anyone can build stronger focus and productivity habits.
Speaking of tools, let's not forget about using apps or software that can actually help us focus. There are apps like Forest or Focus at Will that are designed to keep distractions away while making it easier to stay engaged with your work.
Exactly. And sometimes going analog can be a game changer. I mean, just using a physical planner or writing things down on paper instead of relying on digital tools can help you stay present and focused.
That's a great point. Writing things down has this grounding effect. It's like your brain sees it as more official, and it keeps you more accountable. Plus, there's no chance of getting distracted by notifications while using a notebook.
True. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about focus and health. Staying hydrated, eating balanced meals, and even getting enough sleep plays such a big role in your ability to concentrate. It's hard to focus when you're running on fumes.
Definitely. And let's not forget about movement. Taking short walks or doing a quick stretch during breaks can work wonders for your mental clarity. It's such a small habit, but makes a big difference.
You know, another thing I've realized is how important it is to identify your peak focus hours. For some people, it's early morning. For others, it's late at night. If you can align your most challenging tasks with those high energy times, you will naturally be more productive.
Oh, that's a great point, Tom. I think self-awareness is key here. Everyone's rhythm is different, and knowing what works best for you can really set you up for success.
Exactly. And sometimes giving yourself permission to take a mental reset is necessary. It's okay to step away, recalibrate, and come back stronger. We're not machines. We all need time to recharge.
And you know, Tom, that ties into the bigger picture. Focus isn't just about one day or one task. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports sustained attention and clarity over time. Right, and part of that lifestyle involves being intentional about what you say yes to. Overcommitting or taking on too much at once can completely derail your focus. It's better to prioritize a few things and do them well, rather than spreading yourself too thin.
Exactly. It's all about setting boundaries and knowing your limits. Saying no to things that don't align with your goals can feel hard at first, but it's a huge step toward maintaining focus and achieving what really matters to you.
Absolutely. And when it comes to priorities, I've found that visualizing your goals can be really powerful. Whether it's through a vision board or just writing them down somewhere you can see them, it's a great way to remind yourself of why you're staying focused in the first place.
That's such a great idea. And along with visualizing, I think reflecting on your progress is just as important. Taking time to look back on what you've achieved keeps you motivated and reinforces the idea that your efforts are paying off.
For sure, and it's also about adjusting when things don't go as planned. Life happens, and sometimes distractions are unavoidable. The key is to get back on track without being too hard on yourself.
Right. It's about progress, not perfection. Even if you have an off day, as long as you're consistent over time, you'll still move forward. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly, and it's also a reminder to be patient with yourself. Building focus is a skill, and like any skill, it takes time to develop. It's not something you master overnight.
Totally agree, Maya. And once you start seeing the results, it becomes a lot easier to stay motivated and stick to the habits that keep you focused. It's like a positive cycle that builds on itself.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of focus. It's not just about completing tasks, but also about creating a sense of fulfillment and balance in your life.
And speaking of balance, it's worth mentioning how important it is to take breaks. A lot of people think staying focused means working non-stop, but that's not sustainable. Breaks are essential for recharging and coming back with even more energy and clarity.
Totally, there's a lot of research backing that up, like the idea of working in intervals like the Pomodoro technique. Short bursts of focused work, followed by a quick break, can actually make you more productive in the long run.
Absolutely. It's like giving your brain the chance to reset, and during those breaks, stepping away from screens or doing something physical, like a quick walk or stretch, can make a big difference.
That's a great point. It also ties into the idea of self-care. You can stay focused if you're running on empty. Prioritizing sleep, eating well, and moving your body aren't just nice to haves, they're essential for mental clarity and focus.
So true. I think people underestimate how much our physical state impacts our ability to focus. If you're tired or not feeling great, it's almost impossible to give your best effort to anything.
Exactly, and another thing that helps with focus is decluttering not just your space, but also your mind. Whether it's organizing your desk or journaling to clear your thoughts, a clean and organized environment can do wonders for your concentration.
Definitely. I've also noticed how limiting distractions in your environment plays a huge role. Turning off unnecessary notifications, putting your phone in another room, small changes like these can have a huge impact on how well you focus.
And that's why it's so important to identify your personal distractions. For some people, it's their phone. For others, it might be noise or even procrastination habits. Knowing what derails you is the first step in creating strategies to avoid them.
Exactly. And pairing that with some accountability, like a study buddy or coworker, can help too. When someone else is counting on you or working alongside you, it's easier to stay focused.
That's such a great strategy, Tom. It's amazing how little tweaks to your routine and environment can make such a big difference in your ability to focus.
And speaking of tweaks, another powerful tip is setting clear boundaries. It's important to let people around you know when you need uninterrupted time. Whether it's telling your family, roommates, or coworkers, setting expectations can reduce those unexpected distractions.
That's a game changer, and I think it also applies to digital boundaries. For example, scheduling times to check emails or social media instead of constantly responding to notifications can save so much mental energy.
Oh, absolutely. It's like creating a schedule for your brain, so you're not always switching between tasks. Multitasking might sound productive, but in reality, it just splits your focus and slows you down.
Right, and let's not forget about creating a focus-friendly environment. Something as simple as good lighting, a comfortable chair, or even having water nearby can make the whole experience more enjoyable and help you stay in the zone.
Totally agree. And for those who struggle to get started, I think setting a timer can be really helpful. Just telling yourself, I'll work on this for 10 minutes, can lower the barrier to starting. Most of the time, you'll find yourself continuing past the timer.
That's so true. Sometimes, starting is the hardest part. But once you're in it, momentum takes over. It's like you trick your brain into realizing, hey, this isn't so bad after all.
Exactly. And building on that, I think rewarding yourself can also help. Whether it's taking a coffee break, listening to your favorite song, or anything you enjoy, having something to look forward to can keep you motivated to stay focused.
Oh, I love that idea. Rewards make it feel less like a chore and more like a system of balance. You're training your brain to associate focus with positive outcomes, which makes it easier to repeat the behavior.
And over time, those small, consistent efforts, combined with all these strategies, can lead to massive progress. Focus is really about making intentional choices every day, no matter how small they seem.
Exactly, Tom. And when you think about it, those intentional choices also help you build discipline. It's like a muscle. The more you practice focusing, even for short periods, the stronger that muscle gets.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to highlight that everyone's focus muscle is different. What works for one person might not work for another. Some people thrive with absolute silence, while others might need some background noise or even music to get into their flow.
That's a great point. It's about experimenting and figuring out your personal rhythm. Some people work best in the early mornings, while others might find their groove at night. Knowing your peak productivity hours can make such a difference in how much you accomplish.
True. And once you know what works, it's easier to design your day around it. For example, if you're most focused in the morning, prioritize your hardest or most important tasks then, and leave the easier ones for later.
Yes, prioritization is key. It's like the 80-20 rule, focusing on the 20% of tasks that bring 80% of the results. When you spend your energy on what really matters, it's easier to feel a sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. And speaking of energy, I think managing your energy is just as important as managing your time. Sometimes taking breaks isn't just about stepping away, it's about recharging. Stretching, a quick walk, or even deep breathing can do wonders for your focus.
So true. I think people often underestimate the power of stepping away. It's not procrastination, it's resetting. Sometimes a fresh perspective comes after you've given your mind a chance to rest.
That's why focus isn't just about what you do when you're working, but also about how you prepare yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally. It's a full circle approach.
Absolutely, Tom. That full circle approach also means being mindful of your mental and emotional state. Stress, for example, can really drain your ability to focus. So, learning how to manage stress, whether through mindfulness, exercise, or even just talking to someone, becomes part of staying focused.
Right. And I think people sometimes forget that focus and rest go hand in hand. It's not about being on all the time. It's about finding balance. You need to let your mind recharge so you can come back sharper and more productive.
Balance is such a key word here. And another thing that helps is minimizing distractions. Even small changes, like turning off unnecessary notifications or creating a designated workspace, can have a huge impact on your ability to stay on track.
Exactly. Distractions are everywhere, and sometimes we don't even realize how much they're pulling us away from what's important. Being intentional about creating a focused environment can make all the difference.
And don't forget internal distractions, like overthinking or multitasking. Our brains aren't wired to do multiple things at once effectively, so tackling one task at a time can actually help you get more done.
That's a great point, Maya. Multitasking is often seen as a skill, but in reality, it divides your focus and reduces the quality of your work. Single tasking, on the other hand, allows you to give your full attention to what you're doing.
Yes, and it's so satisfying to fully complete a task, rather than juggling multiple things and feeling like you're making little progress on any of them. It's also a confidence booster. You build momentum when you see things through to the end.
Totally agree. And building momentum is what fuels long-term focus. Each little win reinforces your ability to stay on track, which ultimately builds a stronger habit of focus over time. It's all connected.
Absolutely, Tom. And speaking of building momentum, I think it's also important to set realistic goals for yourself. When you break down big projects into smaller, more manageable steps, it becomes so much easier to maintain that sense of focus and accomplishment.
Exactly. Bite-sized goals make a huge difference. Plus, when you see yourself consistently completing those smaller steps, it reinforces the idea that progress is happening, even if the bigger goal still feels far away.
And it also reduces overwhelm, which is such a productivity killer. When you look at a massive task as one big mountain to climb, it's intimidating. But breaking it into smaller hills makes the journey less daunting and more achievable.
Definitely. I also think there's a lot of value in revisiting your goals periodically. Sometimes our priorities shift or we realize something needs adjusting, and that's okay. Staying flexible while maintaining focus on what truly matters is key.
So true, Tom. It's about progress, not perfection. And that's something people tend to forget. They get so fixated on getting everything right that they lose sight of the bigger picture. Allowing room for mistakes and adjustments is part of the process.
Exactly. Mistakes aren't failures. They're opportunities to learn and improve. I feel like the people who achieve the most are the ones who don't let setbacks derail them. They adapt and keep moving forward. Exactly. Mistakes aren't failures. They're opportunities to learn and improve. I feel like the people who achieve the most are the ones who don't let setbacks derail them. They adapt and keep moving forward.
And that ties back to mindset, doesn't it? Cultivating a growth mindset, where you see challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles, is such a game changer. It shifts your whole perspective on what's possible.
It really does. And speaking of mindset, I think gratitude plays a role too. When you take a moment to appreciate what you've accomplished, no matter how small, it boosts your morale and keeps you motivated to keep going.
That's such a good point, Tom. Gratitude keeps you grounded. It reminds you of how far you've come and helps you stay optimistic about where you're headed. It's a great way to maintain focus and positive energy.
Absolutely. And when you combine gratitude with self-compassion, it's even more powerful. Being kind to yourself on tough days instead of being overly critical can help you bounce back faster and stay consistent in the long run.
Exactly. It's all interconnected: gratitude, mindset, focus, and self-care. When you approach your goals with that holistic perspective, it's amazing how much easier it becomes to stay on track and motivated.
That's right. It's about building a sustainable routine that works for you. If you're too hard on yourself or push too hard, you might burn out. It's about finding that balance where you can keep moving forward without overwhelming yourself.
And also being mindful of your energy. Some days, you might need to take a step back and rest. That's not a sign of failure, it's just part of the process. Rest and recovery are essential to long-term success.
Absolutely, Maya. Listening to your body and mind is just as important as staying productive. I think a lot of people overlook the power of rest. But it's during those moments of downtime that our brains do a lot of the important work: processing, reflecting, and resetting.
Right, it's like charging your phone. If you're always running on empty, you'll eventually burn out. But when you take time to recharge, you come back stronger and more focused.
And I think there's also something to be said about the environment you're in. If you're constantly surrounded by distractions or negativity, it can be harder to stay consistent and motivated. Creating a positive and supportive environment can make all the difference.
I couldn't agree more. A clean, organized space or a positive network of friends and colleagues can keep your mindset on track. If you surround yourself with people who encourage your growth, it becomes easier to maintain momentum.
Exactly. And sometimes, the simple act of eliminating distractions, whether it's turning off notifications or setting boundaries with others, can make a huge impact on your productivity and consistency.
It's all about finding what works for you. Everyone's journey is different, and what helps one person may not be the answer for someone else. But by experimenting and staying open to new strategies, you can find the right mix that keeps you moving forward.
Right. It's a journey of discovery. And no matter what strategy you end up with, the key is consistency. Keep showing up, even on the tough days. That's what makes the difference in the long run.
Exactly, Tom. And when you're consistent, you start seeing progress that might not be immediately obvious. Over time, those small actions compound, and before you know it, you've achieved something bigger than you imagined.
Yeah. And it's not just about achieving goals, it's about developing the discipline that carries over into other areas of your life. The habits you form while pursuing one goal can help you with others.
That's so true. Consistency isn't just a tool for achieving specific objectives. It's a life skill. It teaches you patience, resilience, and the ability to adapt.
And you also learn to trust the process. At first, it may seem like things aren't moving fast enough, but the longer you stick with it, the more you realize that progress isn't always linear. Some days will feel like you're taking steps backward, but that's part of the journey.
Absolutely. And another thing I've noticed is that when you consistently put in the effort, you also become more confident. You start to believe in your ability to keep going, and that confidence makes it easier to tackle new challenges.
Confidence and self-trust are such important byproducts of consistency. It's amazing how sticking with something long enough can shift your entire mindset. You go from doubting yourself to realizing that you're capable of more than you thought.
That's why I think it's so important to focus on the long-term vision rather than the immediate results. The goal is the destination, but the journey is where all the growth happens.
Right. The process shapes you, and it's the growth that ultimately makes the destination so much more rewarding. And when you can reflect on how far you've come, it makes you appreciate the journey even more.
It does, and that's why I believe in embracing the challenges along the way. They might not be fun in the moment, but they are the moments where the most learning and growth happen.
That's a great point, Maya. Every challenge, even the tough ones, is an opportunity to learn. And when you stay consistent, those challenges start to feel less intimidating.
Exactly. So, to everyone listening, remember that progress takes time, and it's the small, consistent steps that make a big difference in the long run. Keep going, even on the tough days.
And celebrate those small wins. Every step forward is a victory. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope you're feeling inspired to take your own consistent actions towards your goals.
Keep learning, keep growing, and remember that consistency is key. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.